Well, good morning to all. I welcome you to join the Community Service and Public Safety Committee meeting today, which is Monday, May 24th at 9 o'clock. Karen, have we complied with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we have.
Karen, could you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Lennox? Mr. Ames? Mrs. Becker? No.
All right, so for the record, my understanding is there are 3 council people on this call, myself, Mr. Lennox, and Mr. Stanford, correct?
I'm present.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
The agenda is approved as written. Can you take this, David Ames?
Morning, David.
We have the minutes of March the 22nd. Is there a motion for approval?
I would move to approve and comment that those are extremely well-written, detailed minutes, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox. I appreciate it.
Great job. I'll second that.
Second. I will be abstaining because I was not present. All those in favor, say aye.
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 So moved. The May 6th special meeting, approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Those in favor, say aye.
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 Karen, in terms of citizen comments, have we been notified any members of the public wish to speak?
No members of the public signed up to speak.
Thank you. There is no unfinished business for today's meeting. Moving to new business, the first item on new business is the first quarter of the 2021 crime statistics, which will be presented by a representative of the Sheriff's Department. Is that going to be our new major?
Let's see here. We've got Major Bromage with us this morning.
Okay. Well, we have the old major. Welcome, Major.
Good morning.
The floor is yours. If you would kindly share the first quarter report. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. And I'm kind of an old major, 31 years now. So. Anyways, crimes against persons, we know that's murder, aggravated assault, robbery, and forcible rape, and Uniform Crime Report, which is published by the FBI every year. We're up 1 from last year's first quarter. We were at 16 last year, and we're at 17 this year. Still well below the national average. I just want to point that out. There were no murders in the first quarter this year. 12 aggravated assaults, 3 robberies, and 2 forcible rapes. Crimes against property, basically theft. 13 burglaries, which are residential and commercial burglaries. 115 larcenies, the bulk of which will be associated with breaking into motor vehicles. And we all know that most of the breaking into motor vehicles aren't break-ins at all. That's people leaving their doors unlocked to their cars. So a lot of that can be attributed to that. We're up 10 in the larceny area from last year, first quarter. Auto theft, 13, a little increase in that. Vehicle collisions down about 7 from last year at 167 in the first quarter. Tickets, everybody's got the first quarter stats in front of them?
Yes, Major, we do. Everyone has as we
Okay.
see the report.
We had a technical issue, probably the fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year. We had to hand count the tickets and warnings. There were actually 697 warnings in the first quarter of this year, and there were 543 tickets issued on Hilton Head Island. So that's the tickets aren't, there's not a big difference, but the warnings, that's almost triple. So a little amendment to what we sent you. It's 697 again warnings, and 543 uniform traffic tickets were issued.
Okay, thank you.
Calls for service, 2,000 down from last year. We know there's a lot of people on the island. I don't have those statistics, but it never slowed down. It really didn't. COVID, again, tickets written in COVID, you're going to see a decrease starting in the second quarter of last year, lasting through now. So there was less contacts via traffic stop for pretty much a year at this point. Anybody have any questions?
Committee members, Mr. Lennox?
Great report, Major. This was as of March 31st of this year. That's about 1 year of pandemic. Looking back, if you will, any surprises, anything different?
No, less contacts, but I don't think there's any surprise there. Again, we're as busy as we've ever been, but it never slowed down. We knew that during COVID, we had a lot of visitors here, and that continues. If you look around Hilton and I live here myself, and go anywhere on a weekend, you're seeing just droves of people. So calls for service, again, our deputies are out there working hard. They're going from call to call. So, moving forward, again, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it has not slowed down. So we're just going to stay busy.
Could you get a feeling for the attitude of the community and the people you came in contact with? Were they more aggressive, less aggressive?
I think in general, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of compliance with the masks.
Mm-hmm.
Calls for service at first, people were alarmed that people weren't wearing masks. I think that a lot of it is peer pressure, especially, the way somebody's going to look at you if you're not wearing a mask. That seems to work itself out. So we didn't issue any tickets regarding face coverings during the pandemic. We had a few businesses that were cited at the beginning of the pandemic for being open. I think one was a movie theater and another was a cigar bar out in Bluffton. But very limited. We didn't find it necessary. It was more of an educational moment with the public. So I don't think anybody's more aggressive. I think with the pandemic, I think people settled in well here, by and large.
Good job getting us through that year.
Mr. Stanford, please.
Thank you. Major, I want to ask you about noise complaints and rowdy party complaints. We're hearing a lot from citizens because we're in the springtime now. It is wedding season. You've got those kinds of parties going on. But what I am hearing is that when they call for service, the deputy shows up, everybody quiets down. He warns them to stay quiet. As soon as he leaves, the party resumes with all of the rowdy behavior. I think that we need to work on some additional tools there. And what I'm thinking of is, first of all, find out who in the group signed the lease or the rental agreement and get that person a photo of that person's driver's license. Kind of put them in the fear. If nobody speaks up, just start collecting pictures of everybody's driver's licenses and tell them that if the party resumes, citations will be issued for nuisance and excessive noise. That is a suggestion from someone who is not a law enforcement person, so it may not be realistic and practical, but I'd be interested in what your thoughts are about how to control this for the benefit of our long-term residents who are suffering major noise complaints.
Yeah, so Lieutenant Andrew Fawcett's here. He actually is supervises patrol operations, Southern Beaufort County, which includes Hilton, of course. So we do have a protocol in place, and I'll allow him to speak on that if that's okay.
Sure, please.
Sir, we've got a protocol that we follow, whether it's on Hilton Head or in Bluffton, but we're primarily speaking with Hilton Head. And I'll use an example of the short-term rentals for an extended period of time by, as hypothetically, a college out of some other state. They come down for the week, and there'll be 15 or 20 of them rent the house out, and we end up with contact with them initially, and that's exactly what we do. We find who's on the lease and get their name, and we make an educational contact with them and explain to them the details of what's going on. Well, 9 times out of 10, when that call comes in, it won't be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's at 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Sure.
So with that being said, they've had an extended period of time of fun going on, and other things seem to occur that allows us to quiet down what's going on, i.e. disorderly conduct, juveniles in possession of alcohol, intoxicated individuals, things like that. Now, we haven't cited anybody off the top of my mind in the last 3 months for the noise disturbance. With the protocol of just noise, if it was just noise, amplified noise, singing, things like that, we'll make notification, explain to them what our process is. The next time we'll be very insistent on the complainant identifying themselves and meeting with us. And if they do that, we will write a written warning on that at that time. If we come back a 3rd time in that night, we'll issue the citation.
That's excellent. I think that is certainly a step in the right direction with a very difficult problem to manage. The other suggestion that I had is to take photographs of driver's licenses and possibly license tags so that they feel like, hey, they can find me. I think the general attitude is they won't be able to find me, the heck with it, I'm not going to worry about it. So I do think also that we need to be making some examples so that people get the word that we're only going to tolerate so much here, and then there's going to be law enforcement activity. So thank you for that report. That protocol, is that reduced to writing?
No, it's not. It's not actually. We don't have it in as far as an explanation in our policy and procedure. It's just we believe in enforcement as the fair way to handle specifically a noise complaint. Now, of course,
It's an accepted practice.
yeah, and it's not too far off of having kids' gloves, but you're still handling things in a professional manner, and they've been given two opportunities to fix the problem before we.
Like you're certainly working at it. And
right.
my final comment is that I, for one, feel very, very safe on Hilton Head Island, and I am extremely grateful to the Sheriff's Department for the quality of law enforcement services, the quick service, and the responsiveness that we get here. Thank you for all you do.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Stanford, so you know, 2019 was the last good data we have from the FBI about the national crime rate, and that was 3.6 violent crimes per 1,000 people or population, and we were at 2.1, not counting the visitors in the workforce, which is our service population. That's at about 40,000. We're at 2.1 violent crimes, so we're almost half. So we're very safe. And property crimes as well, a little over 15 property crimes per 1,000 population on Hilton Head Island, and the national rate is 21 property crimes per 1,000. So I think we do really well. And again, that's not counting the service population where you can add 15 to 20,000 per day, which brings it down exponentially. So,
as I said, I'm very grateful to you for your service, and I feel very safe here. Thank you.
you're welcome.
That's it, Bill.
Thank you, Glenn. Major, on behalf of the town, we want to express our gratitude for all the ways that you've been helping us throughout the years, in particular during this very trying year. My question to you is, how has your group been able to hold up in the COVID-19 in terms of the past 12 months? Have you had incidents of COVID-19 with your group? Have you had?
Yeah, of course we have. Absolutely. A very small percentage have contracted COVID-19. And we still have a case here and there, but the vast majority of the deputies and civilian staff have been vaccinated at this point.
Has it had any impact on your recruiting process?
No. I think some of the national conversation, just like any other law enforcement agency, it's been tough to recruit, but can't attribute that to COVID. I think it's whether people want to get into law enforcement at this point or not.
Well, again, we're very grateful for all that you do. We have two other members of this committee that have joined us. They had some technical issues. I see Tammy Becker on our screen, and David Ames just joined us here at Town Council. Tammy, do you have any comments or questions?
No, and I apologize for joining late. We've got some deliveries and some grandchildren who are here this weekend, so it's a little bit of a crunch everywhere. But I appreciate, as the rest have, the efforts by the Beaufort County Sheriff Department. We do feel safe on Hilton Head, always have, and it's attributable to y'all's good work. And you're always there when we need them. And sorry. And I appreciate that. I am concerned, and I think maybe I came in at the middle of that conversation that Glenn had started. I am concerned about the level of disturbances by some of our visitors in our residential neighborhoods, but that's an ongoing discussion that I think we should collaborate and see what the best moves forward to reduce that distraction and dislocation and lack of quality of life around the island for them. But that's another conversation at another time. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. David Ames has joined us. David?
Yeah, appreciate that, Bill. Good morning, Bob. Good to see you.
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I really don't have more to add other than I appreciate the communication, collaboration, the conversations that we're having with your deputies and hierarchy. I think there are opportunities, as there always are, to look at different areas. But overall, I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the Major? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Major. Good
Thank
job.
you. Everybody have a great week.
Our next item under new business, the Newport Villas retaining wall easement. I believe we have either one or both Jeffs on the call.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Harkins, members of committee. This item before you today involves a neighboring property owner, the Newport Villas POA. They wish to extend an existing timber bulkhead wall onto town property. They came in after Hurricane Matthew and placed some stone riprap on the edges of the marsh that suffered erosion. They thought they were doing that on their property. However, they've come to learn via a survey and wishing to get a permit to extend that bulkhead wall that they placed the riprap on town property. They are willing to extend the wall at their cost under an easement agreement. We see this as a viable resolution And I'm going to ask Brian Eber, who is the Stormwater NPDS Administrator and has been in contact with Newport Villas, to give more details. I think Newport and Shelter Cove are also on the line if you have any questions for them.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Like Jeff was saying, it started out in December when I met with Newport Villas project manager on site, and we were discussing what was essentially a pretty simple bulkhead wall permit over a storm drainage structure. And then the results of the survey came back that it turns out where they wanted to place the wall was actually on town property. And it appears that this town property became the town's back in 2014 as part of the Shelter Cove Town Center agreement. I think there was some swapping of some land that was happening at the time. And so there was an existing fence that was in place. And if you just walked the site and looked at it, you would assume that the Newport Villas owned all the way to the fence, and that's where they wanted to stop short with this retaining wall. But once the survey came back and it showed it was actually, they wanted to do about 28 feet onto town property with this bulkhead wall, we recognized that they needed to come through and get town council approval for the right of entry and enter into a long-term maintenance and access agreement with the town prior to doing this bulkhead wall. They have expressed to me at different points they would like to try to get this resolved as soon as they can. As hurricane season is upon us, they're looking to try to restore this. I did look at the possibility of them just redoing the riprap, but given the slope and the depth is about 11 feet there from the bottom of the pipe to the top of the land, it'd be pretty severe area that would need to be riprapped, and we think a bulkhead wall is much cleaner, much viable, much more long-lasting, and it's something that Newport Villas has agreed to pay for and construct and permit on their own. And I feel that as long as we get in place this right of entry agreement and long-term maintenance access agreement in place, that this is something that the town council should consider favorably.
Thank you, Brian.
Would it help if I showed you guys my screen at all with maybe some more pictures?
Yes, I was just going to ask you to do that, if you would, please.
Sure. Okay. Are you seeing the photograph?
Yes.
Yes, it's very clear.
So I'm kind of standing right where the fence is. That's on town property. And so I'm looking towards their property and their homes, and you can see where my cursor is. That's where the existing wall stops. And this riprap, due to the slope that I talked about earlier, is starting to fail, and it has failed. So it's falling off. It just keeps eroding and falling into the marsh, and that's not really a good long-term viable solution for this area. So as we go to the next page, this is kind of the exhibits of the maintenance and access easements. Obviously, I work with a town attorney to make sure we get that properly recorded and appropriately delineated if you guys choose to go forward with this. But the fence is this black little line here, and at some point it comes back in at an angle towards their entrance. But this area here is after Matthew. They sustained a lot of damage, a lot of eroded bank after that storm came through. So they set about, I'll show you this picture here. They set about putting riprap here where the storm pipe is, where we're asking for this easement. Had to put a wall in because this building was so close. And then they've placed riprap stone around the rest of their property all the way into the actual bay there. So those areas are holding up because they don't have the slope issue, and they also don't have the inflow that goes through the storm sewer pipe in and out twice a day during tide. So we feel like a proper solution would be for a wall versus riprap.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee members? David, please.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned 11 feet. What was the 11 feet?
That was the height of the ground versus the bottom of the pipe, the storm pipe.
Wow. So the outfall of the storm pipe is at what elevation?
It's a little bit over 1.
Okay.
Like 1 and some change.
Okay. I got it. And that's draining into a marsh gully?
Yes,
Some
sir.
sort of,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
The marsh.
All right. 2 questions then. If something happens and the drainage needs to be redone, at whose expense is the connection at the point that the wall and the pipe exist together?
Well, the pipe is ours. The town, we own the pipe there. So if there's something wrong with the pipe or some maintenance needs to happen, that would be on us. We're going to ensure that during the wall construction that they obviously don't do any damage to our pipe. But
is the wall down to the pipe, and does the pipe penetrate the wall, or is it below that, or what?
Well, we haven't seen the plans yet that have been submitted for how they're going to handle it.
My question in this area is that interface, and if there is an issue that the wall needs to be torn up in order to fix the drainage, at whose expense it is. That's one question I have.
It's a very good question. I think maybe we could spell that out a little bit better in the long-term maintenance responsibility agreement.
Okay. Secondly, as you continue that wall onto our property, and walls create erosion at the end of the walls, is there any design consideration to mitigate that, or in the future, if there's erosion on our problem caused by that wall, is that at town expense? So those are my 2 questions. I'm not sure if you have answers for them today.
We got good ones there, Mr. Ames. That's very good.
Thank you, Brian.
I think so. I think there would be an edge treatment to the wall with some riprap to secure that, anchor that. They're obviously going to do about a 5-foot tieback to make sure that the wall doesn't just fall into the marsh as well. But we'll look at that really closely there on that. And does it lead to and exacerbate any problems? I can tell you today where they stopped the riprap on the town property. There does not appear to be any erosion that's going on outside of normal tidal erosion. So maybe that's just due to the form and shape of the boundary there.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the orientation of that marsh edge as it turns that corner. But okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn, please.
Thank you. Does this potential wall and the changes there impact any anticipated use of that property by the town in any adverse way?
That's another very good question. I know I worked with Sean initially on this to ensure that it's kept at, I'll put this screen back up, it's kept at a low height as to not impair the visually from town-owned property for when we improve the park. And if necessary, we have a different treatment that the town would like along its parks is the reason for requiring them to remove it upon our request to match what we're trying to do. If we have a different design where we're using gabion walls or we're using some other method and means along our town park, we want to be consistent. But it's going to be low, below the top of the slope there. So I don't think visually you'll be seeing it. So
Thank you. What I see here is, at the expense of someone else, the preservation of this bank on town property, and I see only benefits to the town. Thank
yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Other members of the committee, any comments or questions?
If I may just jump in for a second, I think that this is a project that benefits both the community and the town in long run. And those agreements, as have been pointed out, we have found have been important in the long run. So clearing up those details and make sure everyone has on the same page is the only thing that I would make sure we're real clear on. And I would support moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Mr. Lennox?
Well, I have nothing to add. I think the agreements are key to this, and make certain that they're tightened up and consider any possible scenarios.
Thank you. I see another one of our colleagues on the call here. Alex, any thoughts or comments?
No, none at this time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hearing none, is there a motion to recommend this be forwarded for consideration to town council?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Karen, could we have a roll call here on this vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
And Mr. Ames?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to hear a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session to conduct interviews with applicants for town boards and commissions.
So moved.
One moment. Before we adjourn, let me note that our committee will not be taking any action as a result of today's discussion in executive session. Therefore, we will not be recording or live streaming the adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please, Karen.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Ames?
Yes.